Tamaki was laying in a grassy veldt and thinking to himself, peace, finally some peace and quiet, even knowing that he is still in his dream. No freaky angeloid lady haunting my dreams anymore. I am free. Tamaki jumped up into a celebratory stance from where he was previously laying. You know that I'm still here, right? As Tamaki turned to see where and whom the voice had come from, he was met with a karate chop, right between the eyes. Got you. It was none other than Daedalus. No freaky angeloid lady, huh? Fearful of another beating, Tamaki was quick to his knees. That's not what I meant, Daedalus. You know, I was thinking you should visit here for a while. Daedalus was lost for words. This could be told by the look in her eyes, easily displaying her emotions because of this. She quickly turned her back on Tamaki. When she turned around ready to give Tamaki an answer, he was already standing behind her. Tamaki slowly drew Daedalus into an embrace and with a flick of his wrist across her face moved the hair covering her face, revealing her sea blue eyes. Daedalus started to become nervous, seemingly picturing Tamaki going to kiss her. Readying himself to go in for a kiss, Tamaki suddenly had a flashback of Aika arrows burning up. Tamaki tightly embraced Daedalus and she sees his pain and awakens him from his dream by leaving him and flying away as she has always done. But this time was different, as it was Daedalus who was playing the dive game with Sora, trying to research just what Tamaki dreams of in his dirty mind. Daedalus came out of the dive game portal and Sora was quick to ask just what Tamaki had been dreaming about, but her face looked flustered and Sora thought to herself, just what had happened? But she was quick to change the subject, as she knew the others most likely never knew what Aika arrows and Tamaki went through. Daedalus had decided that she would spend some time making a new place where all of them could live together. A look of shock ran through Sora's face, but she thought to herself a project might help Daedalus adjust better. Plus Sora thought that there was no way she would be able to do anything serious. Sure, Daedalus, have fun, you need to learn more about this world anyway. Daedalus looked back. I'll be fine, remember I am you. Meanwhile, in Tamaki's room, still struck by the flashback constantly repeating in his head, he jumps out of bed sprinting. Aika arrows. He runs all over the house, even looking in the bathroom where he found Nymph taking a shower. She had not noticed Tamaki yet, and Tamaki seemingly had forgotten about his ordeal and was slowly creeping towards the shower for a closer look. With a mere step, Tamaki was about to be in full view of Nymph's naked body. Tamaki found it harder to control himself. A drop of blood came from his nose. Tamaki scrambled to try and get it before it hit the ground, but he was too late. The splat of the blood gained Nymph's attention. Tamaki, I know it's you, she said. Expecting an onslaught of karate chops, he was quick to tuck himself into a ball. Nymph was angry but thought to herself, what better way is there to please Tamaki? Do you want to join me, Tamo? Tamaki was stuck in a state of shock as Nymph walked towards him completely in the nude. She was quick to grab Tamaki and drag him into the shower. There were Tamaki's eyes staring at Nymph in the nude, but then he noticed her face. She seemed very shy and out of place. I'm sorry, I don't know what to do, master, said Nymph as she went into an embrace with Tamaki. She looked up at Tamaki with nothing but love deep in her eyes. Tamaki was in awe, struck by the sight of her. Something begins to poke Nymph beside her hips. Tamaki then noticed that it was him. Nymph looks down her waist and notices something's outline sticking out of Tamaki's body. She reaches for it and grabs it. What do I do with it now? Tamaki is getting excited but remembers Sora's words. Do anything to the angeloids and I will make you suffer. Then a mystical karate chop knocks Tamaki out of nowhere. Moments later, Sora comes into the bathroom and wakes up Tamaki, claiming about not knowing anything about the mythical chop. As Tamaki gets up, his first sight is of an incoming karate chop which he manages to dodge. He runs downstairs and is met by the sight of all his friends, but as soon as he runs by the kitchen he freezes. As he catches sight of Ikaru's and stops, she sees Tamaki and smiles at him. This makes Tamaki have another flashback of the moment that Ikaru's dropped him off at the synapse. "I love you, master," she had said back then. Unease came with this memory. Tamaki began to burst into tears and ran to Ikaru's, jumping into her embrace. The sudden flood of him and Ikaru's last moments together as the world crumbled started to flood into his head, and with every flashback, he held Ikaru's tighter. Ikaru's also began to have flashbacks of Tamaki crying and also burst into tears. Sohara and the other girls, mostly jealous, assumed that Tamaki must have done something really bad to Ikaru's when they were gone. They readied their attack, but just before they could attack, Ikaru spread her wings and covered her and Tamaki from the others. Nymph saw this and was quick to storm out, flying away. Astria chased after her. Seeing the mood that is quickly taking over the group, Hori is quick to her feet and suggests that the group go farming. Given the situation they have been in, it could be a place to focus their energy. Shigata backs her up, suggesting they have been under a lot of adult tension. "So it's decided then, we are going to farm today," she yelled out. Daedalus asked for the help of Oregano for the day to help her with the building, as it is going to be a mammoth task, and said she might need the help of everyone later. After all of them finished their food, the group embarks on a walk down their usual route, but this time to the farm. Nymph and Astria arrived and landed by the group, and Tamaki only thinks it right to talk to her. He reaches for her shoulder, but she pushes his hand away and starts to walk faster. Tamaki feels sad about how he made Nymph feel, and it's showing all over his face. "Master is feeling down. I should do something," Ikaru thought to herself. She was hesitant at first, but she reached out her hand and held Tamaki's hand. He was unsuspecting that Ikaru would do something like this, but he welcomed it. Nymph looked at the two exchanging smiles and turned away and kept on walking. "It hurts, my reactor, it hurts." At the farm, Mikako and Shigata can clearly see two divided parties amongst the group, and one of the groups wants nothing to do with the other. Tamaki tries once more to get back onto Nymph's good side and offers her grapes. "Hey, I know that you like sweet things." Nymph bluntly refuses but acknowledges what Tamaki is trying to do. Sensing eyes on him, Tamaki turns around and looks to who it is. It's Astria, and she is staring at the grapes. "Do you want them?" asked Tamaki. She happily nodded her head. "Throw them here," Astria shouted. "Okay." With an easy toss, the grapes were airborne and quickly gobbled by Astria. She had taken the grapes in too quick and started to choke. Tamaki ran to Astria and started to perform the Heimlich maneuver, and as quickly as the situation had come, it ended. Astria jumped into an embrace with Tamaki. "Thank you for saving me, Tomo," and showered him with kisses. As she was embracing Tamaki in the background, Nymph and Ikaru looked on and both felt a small pain in their reactors, but they were happy that Astria was okay. Nymph and Ikaru looked at each other smiling and then back to Tamaki. After the atmosphere had calmed down, more of the group suggested they grab a well-deserved meal. The group started walking to the closest restaurant. "After we get something to eat, maybe we can go to the spa." A suspicious look started coming from Tamaki's face with his perverted grin. "This is only for the girls, right, Mikako?" She nodded her head yes. Tamaki was quick to react, suggesting they all take a bath together. "No!" screamed Sohara as she karate chopped Tamaki right between the eyes. Tamaki quickly recovered and soon found himself walking between Nymph and Ikaru. He reached out with both of his hands for Nymph and Ikaru and grabbed both of their hands. They seemed surprised and shy. Chaos came and then jumped on Tamaki's back. Astria looked back while she was walking with the rest of the group and rushed Tamaki, jumping on him too. "We're here. Time for some ramen." Sohara shouted out. While the entire group was eating together, Nymph stayed back and ate alone. Aika arose and Tamaki looked at her, seeing that she was still in a sad state, and came up with a solution. You have to go talk to her master, she needs you. Aika arose whispered to Tamaki. He got up and started walking towards Nymph's seat, and she saw him coming and started to move away slowly. Nymph realized that Tamaki was coming to her and she quickly ran outside, and Tamaki chased her in pursuit. Sohara and Astria were about to follow. Do not get involved, Master will solve this problem. Nymph ducked into an alley and put herself against the wall. She sat down and started crying. Tamaki found her crying. Why are you crying, Nymph? She looked at him and muttered out, because I don't have you. You were only sad that Aika Uro's got hurt. Tamaki's hand reached out and held Nymph gently by her cheek. You will always have me, I am yours just as you are mine. He wiped the tears from Nymph's eyes. Do you love me, Tamaki? Tamaki answered Nymph's question with a gentle kiss and a sudden tight embrace. I love you, Nymph. I was scared when I lost you. He looked at her and started crying. Nymph, don't ever do something so stupid as blowing yourself up again, or I will never forgive you and myself for letting things go that far. Nymph's face was full of confusion and blushing at the same time. Why did you only go for Aika Uro's? Why were you only sad about her getting hurt? Tamaki shook his head in denial. I was scared when I lost each and every one of you. I thought I was going to be alone forever. Nymph hugged Tamaki, putting his head by her chest. Don't cry, Tomo. He smiled, still teary. Tamaki helped Nymph up and gave her a kiss on the hand, held her hand and started to walk back to the restaurant, and she locked arms with Tamaki. Aika Uro's and Sohara had gone ahead of the group as they had errands to run for everyone. Meanwhile, the two got back just in time. That was delicious. Time to go to the spa, ladies, Mikako stated. No boys allowed. Nymph wanted to stay with Tamaki. She made that clear by the way she wrapped his arms around her, but Tamaki looked at her. Hey Nymph, it's okay, you can keep hugging me at home, just go to relax for a while, okay? You deserve it, she nodded with a smile on her face. Is that an order, Tomo? With a grin on her face, Tamaki ran his hand through her hair and gave her a gentle push to the other girls. Tamaki looked down and then up again at the group. Okay everyone, I will see you later, I need some time to think anyway. He slowly started walking away. Enjoy yourselves, you know where to find me if you need me. He was heading to the big oak tree to find time to think to himself. Hours had passed and the rest of the group had returned to Tamaki's house for one final meetup, but Tamaki was not there. Nymph said she would go look for him because she has a better radar than the others, so it would be quick. She left in a moment's notice and was out flying to the big oak tree, where she found Tamaki laying up in the big oak tree sleeping. He looked cold and Nymph went to him and laid on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Tamaki's arms moved and wrapped themselves around Nymph, looking for warmth. She felt safe in Tamaki's arms and closed her eyes. Tamaki woke up minutes later to find Nymph resting on his chest, but he didn't push her away. He started to gently stroke her hair. She opened her eyes and slowly looked at him. I love you, Tomo. I love you more than anything. And Nymph quickly retreated to Tamaki's arms. He wrapped his hands around her. Hey, Nymph, you want to do it? The imprint. A moment of silence passed. You really want to do the imprint with me? She nodded yes, and the imprint started, and as the chain formed between the two, they kissed each other as their seal of approval. Nymph held the chain and smiled at Tamaki. He reached out for Nymph's cheek. She seemed shocked, but as soon as Tamaki's hand started rubbing against her cheek, she started to cry and he started to wipe her tears away. Let's get back home, okay, Nymph? The others are probably worried about us. But she didn't want to leave, just went. Hey Tomo, I promise I won't do something like blow myself up again. He looked at her and smiled. I will protect you, Nymph. I will never allow anyone to hurt you. She smiled at him and was ready to take off, but Tamaki held her hands down. You're always carrying me around, it's my turn to carry you. Hop on. He pointed at his back. Nymph didn't resist and was quite happy to get a piggyback ride from Tamaki. She hopped on and Tamaki started running, headed for home, and Nymph wrapped her hands around Tamaki, blushing and grinning all the way. She kissed Tamaki on his cheeks and kept saying, I love you, all the way home. Before they knew it, they were back home and the rest of the group was still there. Nymph hopped off and grabbed Tamaki's hand and ran into the house with Tamaki in tow. Bursting in through the door, they found the rest of the group finishing up dinner, and Teika, Uros, Chaos, Astria, Hori and Sohara spotted that Nymph and Tamaki were holding hands. The room fell quiet, and seeing the atmosphere surrounding them, Mikako and Shugata decided it was time for them to leave. Hori, after seemingly sitting and waiting for someone to say something, left immediately with Shugata and Mikako. Where is Daedalus? Asked Tamaki. I haven't seen her for the whole day. Sohara replied. She is busy with a new project of hers. She said it's going to bring us closer together. Tamaki thought it would be best he go and take a bath since he had been out the whole day. He headed his way and soon began to shower, but the mood in the lounge was uneasy. Stares and piercing eyes were all over the room. Astria then stood up and walked upstairs and stood outside the bathroom door. I have to get Master to notice me, and if this is the only way, then I will do it. She began to strip slowly and then walked into the bathroom. The other girls had begun to talk again after a topic was brought about who is Tamaki's girlfriend. It was an argument really. All were making points and trying to state facts till Nymph and Teika Uros both admitted to kissing Tamaki. Sohara and Chaos were in a state of shock. So Tamaki has kissed everyone except me. The argument after that last point died down, but Nymph and Teika Uros stared at each other for a while. Astria had walked in on Tamaki in the shower. Can I join you, Master? Said Astria in an innocent, pure voice. Tamaki was shocked and couldn't reply as Astria stepped into the shower and embraced him from behind. You are always spending time with Nymph, Teika Uros, Hori and Sohara, but you never spend time with me, said Astria. Down in the lounge, they started to get suspicious of Astria not yet returning. The girls then ran up the stairs to find Astria's clothes outside the bathroom. Sensei told me that if you love someone, there are many ways you can show how much you love them, said Astria. She started to lick Tamaki. Do you remember when we did this demo? He replied, I do, but don't forget that I got to lick you too. As he licks her on her cheek, the girls burst into the shower and spot Tamaki and Astria, but the stress of the day gets to Tamaki and he goes on a karate chop rampage. Firstly going after Astria, busting down the door and chasing down the other girls naked. All the angeloids flew away, but Sohara was chased into a corner in a dimly lit room. She opted from running and went on the attack, but Tamaki dodged it and it landed onto Tamaki's family jewels. The angeloids saw this as another one of Tamaki's way of getting girls and blackmailing them, and they were quick to a rescue. Tamaki's attack quickly turned into a defense. He was quick to start running, bolting for the door with the angeloids in pursuit from the air and Sohara on foot. Tamaki was headed for Shugata's place, but with the angeloids closing in, he took a detour to Hori's place. He scrambled through the door only to find Hori watching TV. Hide me, Hori, hide me, screamed out Tamaki. She grabbed Tamaki and threw him in her room, closing the door behind him, and then headed outside. She was greeted by the sight of women scorned. All were looking for Tamaki. Time passed and the angeloids using their radar knew exactly where Tamaki was hiding. He saw Nymph staring at him outside of Hori's window and quickly began to run back to the house. During the run, the angeloids lost track of his trail. By the time they had found it, he was already back at the house in his bed, supposedly sleeping. The girls saw no reason to wake him up, and with this, The commotion died down. Sohara found that it was time for her to sleep. The Angeloids were left alone with Tamaki. Each of them wanted to watch over their master as he slept, and some wanted more. The tension was thick in the atmosphere, all of them waiting to see who was to make the first move. All of them ended up leaving the room. Nymph to watch her soaps, Astria to go get something to eat, and Aika, Eros and Chaos sitting outside on the roof. The rest of the night was nothing more than a blur. A new day was brought by sunrise. As Tamaki opened his eyes, he first caught sight of Aika Eros, who was laying on his chest in his bed with him. She stared at him with a deep look. Tamaki was shocked and lost for a moment, but smiled at Aika Eros and she smiled back. He put his hand around her, holding her tighter. She seemed flustered. Sohara called out from outside the room, shouting, "They are going to fall behind with their plans if he delays any longer." Tamaki was laying in his futon with Aika Eros, both lost deep in each other's eyes. After waiting a while, Sohara burst into Tamaki's room, finding Tamaki and Aika Eros busy kissing each other still in the futon. Just with this one glance, Sohara ran out of the room silently crying, but quickly returned to karate chop Tamaki. "What are you doing to Aika Eros, you pervert?" Tamaki had begun the day how he usually does, running for his life, but back in the futon, Aika Eros looked on as Sohara chased Tamaki around the room and remembered the look that was on her face. After Sohara had told the Angeloids that she found Aika Eros in Tamaki's futon, the group all were quick to jump to conclusions that Tamaki forced Aika Eros to do dirty things all night. At the back of everyone, Nymph is thinking, if that is what Tamaki wants, she is not afraid to give it to him. But the real reason they are all in Tamaki's room is that it was the first day of school, which had been delayed due to the world ending. Sohara quickly held Tamaki by the collar and chucked him into the bathroom. As they were about to depart, something stopped them. What to do with Chaos? Astria made the suggestion that she come to school with them, but she looked like a small kid. Before they could keep complaining about where to take her, Chaos transformed into her adult form. At first, the group was shocked but calmed down for a while till Chaos asked a request from Tamaki. "Mister, can I hold your hand while we go to school?" asked Chaos. Looks of shock were spread around the group. Tamaki remembered a memory of Chaos asking for love from Tamaki and what happened when he did not pay attention to her. He reaches out to his hand and Chaos also reaches out, and they start to walk hand in hand, while behind them the rest of the group is still in shock. Chaos, in her adult form, went on to lock arms with Tamaki. This made Aika Eros uncomfortable and she rushed to Tamaki's vacant arm. She held it tightly and leaned on Tamaki's shoulder. They started the walk to school, and as they walked, Tamaki looked to his shoulder staring at Aika Eros. He wrapped his arm around Aika Eros and they kept on walking, picking up the rest of the group along the way. Mikako noticed the look on the other girl's face when they looked at the way Tamaki is holding Aika Eros, but Nymph was the only one who was at ease. Aika Eros starts to cry and Tamaki quickly comes to a halt and holds her by the shoulders, asking her, "What's wrong?" She looks at him, "I'm sorry, master. I'm just so happy to be with you again." Tamaki picks up Aika Eros' face as she was looking down and rubs her cheek while wiping away her tears. He pulls her in for a hug and holds her tight. "Aika Eros, you've cared for me ever since we met. I'm going to take care of you better. I'm going to take care of all of you better." In the distance, coming from behind them, were Daedalus and Oregano, who came flying both in school uniforms. After the silence left the group and they reunited together, they continued on their way to school, knowing that a new adventure awaited.